please. Okay, councillors, I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we are gathered and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to welcome you to the 785th Ordinary Council meeting of 28th of April 2021. I now declare the meeting open at 10 a.m. I would like to advise meeting attendees the meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. Councillors, can the gallery please be upstanding if you're able to enjoy me a moment of contemplation? Earlier this week, I had the honour of attending the Anzac Day service held by the Springwood Tri-Services Club sub-branch. It was a humbling and deeply moving service. I hope many of you had the opportunity to commemorate and honour our veterans past and present. The Anzac legend has become an apparent part of our identity of the Australian and New Zealanders, shaping the way in which we view both our past and our future. The Anzac qualities of courage, endurance, initiative, discipline and mateship and a fair go are well recognised and embraced, and the Anzac spirit lives on in our younger generations today. There is much we can learn from our service men and women. Their courage, service and sacrifice is incomparable. I encourage you all to take some time to reflect on the contribution and the suffering of all those who have served and those who are still serving, lest we forget. Thank you. You may be seated. Councillors, I note that we have a leave of absence request for Councillor Russell due to medical leave. Are there any further leave of absences to consider? No, there's not. I now move a motion that Councillor Russell be granted a leave of absence in accordance with section 5.3C3 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code. Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. The motion has been carried. I now wish to refer to condolences. Do any councillors have a condolence to raise? No condolences raised. Please stand if you're able to. Join me in a moment of reflection and honour of those who have gone before us in support of those who they have left behind. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we'll go to congratulations. I now open the floor for congratulation requests. Do any councillors have a congratulation request to raise? We'll start at Division 1. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I request that congratulations be forwarded to several groups today. Pardon me. I request that congratulations be forwarded to several groups today, Mr Mayor. The first being Logan City Council's events team, headed by Kate Ryan, the admin facilities team, headed by Alan Wilson, and Stephen Atkinson, the maintenance and security support officer. The reason why I've asked for congratulations to be passed along to them is the Logan and District sub-branch of the RSL closed in 2019, and we didn't actually have a march nor a dawn service organised for this year. And I went to the team and I said, you know, let's get something going, and they worked tirelessly to get it done. They were there at 4 o'clock in the morning. They were working with me to get groups together, to get groups involved, and I appreciate every bit of effort they and their support team put into this Anzac Day service. Dawn service was attended by about 500 people, and the march was around the 1,500 mark. Now, I don't think that's too shabby, given we didn't have a single list to start with, and I'd just like for you to forward my congratulations on to the team, please. The other group that I would like to acknowledge and send congratulations to are each of the schools that participated. Woodridge State High School provided a drumline band and their seniors. St Paul's Catholic School provided 2 preppies and their school principal. Kingston College, Groves Christian College, all attended that march, and it's very much appreciated. It shows respect for our returned servicemen and women, and I'd just like to pass that congratulations along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was very proud to attend dawn service in Logan Village this year, and I was particularly proud to see the new cenotaph, which was all aglow with the soldiers that are complementary to the Forest of Memories, those of you who know that. So a huge thank you to Council's Parks team and also to Council's ED&S team who worked hand in glove with the RSL to deliver that facility. But today what I wanted to talk about was an event that I went to at Palm Lakes. So please, I ask that congratulations be formed to Palm Lakes Social Club Anzac Committee President Mr Brian Buckby. I had the great pleasure of attending the Anzac Day commemorative service, and the service included guests from Palm Lakes Bethania, Palm Lakes Waterford and their families. Now hundreds of people were in attendance, including returned servicemen and women dressed accordingly, a piper, Mr Steve Monteith, who's the Vice President of the South East District RSL, and Reverend Owen White. Now, Mr Buckby acted as MC on the day, and together with his organising committee, they did an outstanding job delivering a service that would rival any across the city. The Palm Lakes Choir performed a beautiful rendition of Abide With Me, and veterans took part in the flag raising. A highlight of the service was unveiling a plaque to commemorate the fallen, and the sandstone plinth was provided by Palm Lake, and I was very proud to have allocated funding for the bronze plaque from the Division 4 Community Benefit Fund. I was invited to unveil the plaque together with veteran Mr Doug Bennett. A further highlight was Reverend Owen White reading a beautiful poem written by Mr Ron Beeston. Now, Mr Beeston is a resident from Palm Lakes, Waterford, and his poem, The Drover's Horse, was so touching, I was brought to tears. And when I stood, I noticed so was everyone else. It was amazing. All who could stood for the ode and the national anthem. And following was morning tea, served accompanied by Bundaberg rum, of course. It was an absolutely fabulous service, and I believe that they deserve the recognition of what they've achieved. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So, Councillor Raven, Councillor Hall, Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And so along the same lines of Councillor Lane, we do have a sub-branch at Jimboomba, but sometimes it's a lot of work. It's hard to get volunteers, whether it's a footy club, a sub-branch, quota, it doesn't matter. They had hard to get volunteers. They were struggling a bit with the COVID plan and copped a fair bit of slack from the beautiful Facebook media, we'll call them. I was lucky enough to have Rebecca Roberts and her team from ED&S in the office. I seen the negative feedback that they were getting. I reached out. I was honoured enough that the RSL and the sub-branch let me help them out. Rebecca Roberts was amazing. She took it on. We got the thing delivered, and we had over 2,000 people turn up to the dawn service. So I definitely want to reach out and congratulations to Rebecca Roberts and her team from ED&S for helping out and saving the day. So it meant a lot. Thank you very much.
Councillor Stem? Councillor
Thank you. I too would also like to congratulate both the Jimboomba RSL and the Greenbank RSL for putting on some fantastic Anzac Day services on Sunday. I attended the Jimboomba one at 4 o'clock in the morning with Councillor Bannon, and then I attended the 10 a.m. service back at Greenbank. Both of them were attended by thousands of people, which was fantastic to see. And to see all of the school kids in attendance and the singers and all of the school groups that were there was just beautiful. So please, I'd like to thank especially the Jimboomba and the Greenbank RSLs, for both putting on fantastic services and to everyone that organised them. You did a tremendous job under COVID pressure and lifting and closing of restrictions and that sort of thing. So it really was fantastic to see across the city. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I too would like to extend my congratulations on Anzac Day in Logan. I would like to extend a congratulations to the Beenleigh RSL on the successful Anzac Day service held in Beenleigh. From the dawn service to the march, the crowd swelled as the locals come together to pay respect to our veterans. I want to thank the Beenleigh RSL organising committee for the many hours spent organising the day, including Dave Draper, the current sub-branch president. Thank you. The 25th of April in the Murphy House is a date that we pay respect to the men in our families that have served, from my grandfather to my great uncle who served for England and took the opportunity to immigrate to Australia to live, to Cameron's uncles who changed their name from Dominski to Allen just so they could join the army and then lost their lives in a battle and are buried in the Commonwealth war graves in Ypres in France. To more recently, my husband and his two brothers that all joined the Australian Defence Force in the 1980s as young men to serve the country. Our diggers are the bravest of their generation, and on behalf of a grateful nation, we thank and pay our respects to them and all those that have continued to serve in the Australian Defence Force for our freedom, lest we forget.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I would also like to have congratulations sent to the Springwood Tri-Services Club. I know there was a lot of hard work put into the planning of it. I know they were concerned about the COVID plan and they got through it. So congratulations. It was a great service at Springwood. It always is well attended. But I'd also like to congratulate the Council Parks Department, because I got a congratulations from the Springwood Tri-Service Club how well the park was presented. And there was an absolute credit to the staff that they had it absolute pristine for that day. And so it should, but it's good to see that it got achieved. So congratulations there. So that'd be great. All right, councillors, now we'll go to the confirmation of minutes of the 784th Ordinary Council meeting held on the 24th of March 2021. So I now refer to the minutes of the previous Ordinary Council meeting. I move that the minutes of the 784th Ordinary Council meeting held on the 24th of March 2021 be confirmed. Is there a seconder to the motion? That's what I said. 784. So, okay, so Councillor Raven has seconded the motion.
My apologies. Can I just clarify? On the screen in front of me, it reads 284. Is it 284 or is there an error?
784.
Thank you. Could that error be corrected, please?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My apologies.
Sorry. Okay, so now I know why the confusion. Okay, so Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No one wishes to speak. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. So we've got the confirmation of minutes of the 272nd Special Council meeting held on the 12th of April 2021. I now refer to the minutes of the previous Special Council meeting. I move that the minutes of the 272nd Special Council meeting held on the 12th of April 2021 be confirmed. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Stemp has seconded the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No one wishes to speak to the motion. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. Okay. So we have no business arising from the minutes to consider, so we'll go straight into the committee recommendations. I now refer to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting held on the 20th of April 2021. Councillor Raven, Chairperson of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before we move into discussion, do any councillors have any new conflicts of interest they'd like to declare? There being none, I will carry on. I note there's a proposed amendment to item 5.2 titled the Major Planning Scheme Review 2020. Before I put that amendment to the floor, though, I'd like to speak to the motion. This major amendment is at the end of a long period of community consultation, and it's got some significant changes to the way that planning will work in our city. I do want to note that at this stage is just a submission to the state government, so it still needs to be endorsed by the state before it can actually be brought into our planning scheme, and there's a process of community consultation, public consultation that we'll do over the next 6 months as part of that. This consultation will be a pilot for how we'll actually do the full planning scheme review for 2025. So if you see on your councillors' Facebook pages, if you see in local newspapers, if you see advertising on YouTube and Facebook promoting opportunities for you to come out and speak to planners and understand these, I encourage the community to come out. Our councillors are keen and engaged. They'll be out there wherever they can be at Meet the Planner Days, at shopping centres and libraries. And if you've ever got any questions, your councillor or me as the planning chair is more than happy to put you in contact with the right staff. I want to commend the Mayor's leadership on one particular item that he, as soon as he came into office, he called a meeting with the Director of Strategy and Sustainability and with myself and said, I'm tired of average lot sizes. I'm tired of how they get used as a loophole to line the pockets of developers. And it's not all developers, Mr. Mayor, it's just some developers who sit there and they look at flooded land, they look at land with roads and parks, and they use those offsets to squeeze tinier lots in than what we expected and what our community expected. So I want to thank you for leading the charge on that and making it very clear that this was a priority. We're 1 year into our term and you've already done a change that hasn't been touched by any mayor before you since 2015. So that full credit to you and to my colleagues as well for supporting that. It's a great win for the community, but there's so much more than that in this. There's increased minimum lot sizes in many of the zonings. There's diversity of lot frontages, so we don't just see little mini matchboxes all lined up on a street. We actually see different looking houses. We see what looks like normal organic development that happens over a long period of time. And when we're seeing the growth that we're seeing now, it's important that we protect the future of our community. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this motion, and I'll now put the minor amendment to the floor for consideration. This minor amendment is to correct the grammar of Clause 2 that we recommended through the committee process, so it aligns with the recommended legal wording. Accordingly, I now move that the committee's recommendation for item 5.2 be adopted, but with the following inclusion of amendment to Clause 2 to read as follows. 2, that council decides to amend the planning... Pardon? I will give you an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I'll just read this out, then I'll give you an opportunity to speak before we go on. That council decides to amend the planning scheme to give effect to the proposed amendments identified in attachment 1 of the Economic Development and Strategy Manager's report dated 2021. I open the floor to discussion before I put the motion to be seconded.
So before we go, so you're moving the motion. I'm going to second the motion. And now I'm going to ask for anyone wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to actually just speak in general, if I may, in relation to item 5.2, and I do wish to also commend you on having that section of the planning scheme changed. Certainly was a reason that I actually came to office. A Daisy Hill development was the whole, was the instigator of or the pusher for me to run for council, because I could see that there were things going on. I did a lot of RTI research where I could see that, dare I say, untoward things were happening that the public weren't aware of. So I actually commend you on that. I also wish to highlight too about the childcare being next to, well, for example, it actually triggered me to bring this up in committee, because two childcares are proposed in Lamorna Street, Rochedale South, which is just a normal, everyday residential street, not a collector road at all, not a big major road. And we have 2 applications for childcare centres in that street, adjacent to a school, and that's what makes it code accessible. So I want to commend the council officers for actually listening to me and the concerns of the community, and for the community also for expressing those concerns, and I can only commend this. Thank you.
Councillor Bradley, any other speakers? No? Okay, I'll just say a few words. This planning scheme amendment that Councillor Raven was referring to was a bugbear of mine for many, many years. I tried to get it changed. There was no appetite. I want to congratulate the councillors here for allowing the change. I believe it's for a much fairer way of dealing with subdivision on flood-affected properties. I believed it was a bit of a secret out in the community about it. Not all developers knew about it. And certainly trying to explain to residents how people were allowed to put smaller blocks in a zoning will never have to be questioned again. You won't have that indignity of having to try and explain something that was wrong. And I know developments in my area, one particular one, it was so hard to explain to residents. I just lost credibility, absolute lost credibility. But it's being changed, and I thank you very much. So now I now open the floor to vote. As you know, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Raven, you're welcome to continue with the remainder of the committee recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll now move on to the remainder of the recommendations for the committee. And I note that if I had $1 for every time a resident or a councillor in this place last term complained about average lot sizes, I would be able to retire a happy man for a long time. So it was a massive issue in the community. I now call for discussion on the remainder of the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Do any councillors further wish to speak? Councillor Kransky.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With your indulgence, I'd like to speak to item 4.2. Councillors, on the 29th of March, I requested the proposed Crystal Gardens Over 50s Lifestyle Village be presented to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee for a decision. I was keen to ensure the decision would be made openly, and I'm pleased that all 274 pages of the report are available to the public. The report was presented to councillors last Tuesday in an open committee meeting with the debate live streamed to the public, and I thank councillors for their contribution to the debate. In the interest of time, I won't repeat the discussions from last week, but encourage residents to visit Council's YouTube page where the officer's presentation and councillors' discussion can be viewed in full. Mr Mayor, I understand there are residents who would prefer to see no changes to the properties between the existing Opal Gardens Over 50s Lifestyle Village and the RSL. But in a nutshell, the site in question is in the low-medium density residential zone, townhouse precinct, and has been since May 2015 when the Logan Planning Scheme 2015 commenced. To put this into context, a compliant code-accessible two-storey townhouse development application would not require public notification. The application would not come before council. It would not require conditions to be placed upon the development necessarily, and would not allow for councillors to vote on the approval. The decision, quite simply, would be out of our hands. The proposed Crystal Gardens development will be of a similar form and style to the adjacent Opal Gardens development. Future Crystal Gardens residents will be limited to a mature age over 50s demographic, and development will be restricted to allow for owner-occupiers only. The same could not be said for a townhouse development on this site. In addition, Crystal Gardens development conditions include upgrades to the Logan Village Riding Club, the RSL, and consideration be given to Opal Gardens residents who border the site in terms of screening, planting, boundary fencing, and conditions applied during construction. The Logan Village Riding Club have advised, as a result of the evolving positive relationship and the mandated conditions contained within the DA, the Logan Village Riding Club Executive Committee and its members are happy to support the Living Gems development adjoining the Logan Village Riding Club grounds. Further, to support the development, Logan Village Riding Club wishes to formally advise the Council that it withdraws the earlier submission of objection lodged in November 2020. When the RSL presented me with footage of an elderly veteran falling whilst trying to navigate his way to a poorly lit brick 70s-style toilet block at the end of a sloping, uneven path at the RSL, I knew something had to be done. Installing a new toilet block for the RSL has been negotiated as a condition of this development. I appreciate the Crystal Gardens over 50s lifestyle village may not be what some residents would like to see built on this site. But comparatively speaking, I believe the community would be far better served by an over 50s lifestyle village than a 2-storey townhouse development. I also believe this represents a better outcome for the neighbouring residents of Opal Gardens. In addition, I value the works that have been negotiated to assist 2 of Logan Village's oldest and largest community groups. The Logan Village RSL and Riding Club works come at no additional cost to council or Logan ratepayers, but will provide desperately needed resources to support the Logan Village community. And it is for these reasons, Mr Mayor, I will be supporting this development today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Kerensky. I sympathise with your call on this. I understand the planning scheme really didn't give you a choice. It was the devil or the deep blue sea, as they say. I've had similar applications in my area, and I understand why you're supporting this application. On the other hand, I didn't support it because I was not happy with the way the council officers worked out the situation with the developer, and the officers know what I was referring to, so I won't go into that any further, but I sympathise with your call, and we'll move on. So there being no further speakers, any further speakers? No. Councillor Raven, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I just want to commend the Divisional Councillor, Councillor Kransky, for the work that she's done, both liaising between the community and the proponent. If there was a townhouse development on this site that was code accessible, there would have been no opportunity for that engagement. So the community benefits that are being delivered to the tune of $350,000 by the developer would not have occurred, because a code accessible development cannot have conditions placed on it above and beyond what the planning scheme calls for. This is a great outcome for the community. They may not realise it now, and the people who don't want to see further retirement villages on that street can rest assured that this is the end of the townhouse precinct on that street. So the buffer of the RSL and the Pony Club means that the rest of the street remains in its rural residential zoning, and they won't see any further encroachment like this. If they do, it would be impact accessible, it would come back to this place, and I think the officers would have a very hard time recommending an approval for that sort of development. Mr Mayor, I now move that the recommendations of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting held on the 20th of April 2021, with the exception of item 5.2, be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Raven has moved the motion. There's a seconder to the motion. Councillor Murphy has seconded the motion. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise... Oh, hang on. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No? Okay, I now put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. We'll now go to City Infrastructure. I now refer to the City Infrastructure Committee held on the 20th of April 2021. Councillor Lane, Chairperson of the City Infrastructure Committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now refer to the City Infrastructure Committee meeting held on 20 April 2021. Just before we start, do any councillors have any new conflicts of interest to declare? There being none, I note that there is a proposed amendment to item 4.1, Mr Mayor. On Tuesday, the 20th of April, a report was considered by the City Infrastructure Committee regarding an update on Inland Rail. One of the recommendations of the report was that the Director of Innovation and City Transformation write to the Coordinator General seeking an immediate decision on the application by the ARTC to declare the Kangaroo to Acacia Ridge and Bromelton Inland Rail project a coordinated project. A decision on this recommendation was deferred to Ordinary Council on the 28th of April. However, following the committee's discussion, Council received correspondence on Wednesday the 21st of April from the ARTC advising that the Office of the Coordinator General would not be deeming K2ARB a coordinated project. The correspondence stated that the ARTC will now work with the Department of Transport and Main Roads to determine the approvals pathway for the project. In light of this development, the Director of Innovation and City Transformation has amended his recommendation as follows: that the Mayor write to the Minister for Transport and Main Roads seeking assurances that the approval pathway for Kangaroo to Acacia Ridge and Bromelton Inland Rail project will be transparent, rigorous and consultative to ensure that the interests of the community are properly considered and safeguarded from the impacts of Inland Rail. And I now move that the amended motion be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Lane has moved the motion. There is a second to the motion. Councillor Bannon has seconded the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No one wishes to speak. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion has been carried. Councillor Lane, you may be welcome to continue with the remainder of the
Thank you very
Committee
much, Mr Mayor. It was
recommendations.
a great meeting, but I'll now call for discussion on the recommendations of the meeting and leave it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Do any other councillors wish to speak? No? Okay. There being no further speakers, Councillor Lane, you may proceed.
I really love a good zippy committee, Mr Mayor, thank you. I now move that the recommendations of the City Infrastructure Committee meeting held on 20 April 2021, with the exception of item 4.1, be adopted.
Councillor Lane has moved the motion. There is a seconder. Councillor Stemp has seconded the motion. I now open the floor to... No. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. I now put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is being no.
I'm just going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. So it hasn't been carried unanimously. Councillor Bradley has recorded her vote. So thank you. That motion has been carried. City Lifestyle. Now refer to the City Lifestyle Committee held on the 21st of April 2021. Councillor Karansky, Chairperson of City Lifestyle Committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before we move into discussions, do any councillors have any new conflicts of interest to declare on any items? There being none, I'll now speak to the report. Last week at the City Lifestyle Committee, 3 reports were discussed. The first was from our Community Services branch on the direction of Logan Central's community facilities. The report provided a summary of the review that was undertaken on community facilities and their functions in Logan Central. There are a number of facilities in Logan Central that have either had prolonged vacancies or there's been uncertainty around their future use. This report provided certainty around the future use of these facilities. The remainder of the reports presented were presented by our Sport, Leisure and Facilities branch. The Sporting Facilities Improvement Program, this report was prepared in response to a previous GB item seeking information on how Council may be able to provide further support to sporting clubs across the city to raise the standard of facilities so as to improve the users' experiences and contribute to the overall image of the City of Logan. This program will provide much needed support to clubs who'd normally be responsible for these works as they recover from the impacts of COVID-19, and we look forward to hearing more about that in future. And finally, Rosier Park Delivery Funding Allocation. This report presents Council with funding options to enable the implementation of the Rosier Park Master Plan, which will ultimately deliver 68 hectares of new and unique green space in Park Ridge. The park responds to emerging community needs and provides provision for a premier wheeled sport precinct and recreational trails network. And I'd just like to commend the Divisional Councillor on his passion for this project and the whole of Council for getting behind Rosier Park. Delivery of the park was given a significant boost with the allocation of $9 million under the federal government's Local Road and Community Infrastructure Program. And this report presents information on the proposed delivery of the future stages 2 and 3 with the consideration of accessing the Local Government Infrastructure Plan funding, South East Queensland Stimulus Package for 21 to 24 funding, and future budget allocations subject to consideration as part of the 21-22 budget process. These funding options maximise the opportunity to access funding from external sources to progress the District Recreation Park and Metropolitan Sports Park in Park Ridge. Mr Mayor, I say watch this space. Exciting times ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Karansky. Any other councillors wish to speak? No? No. Okay. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will now move that the recommendations of the City Lifestyle Committee held on the 21st of April 2021 be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Karansky has moved the motion. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hall, the second of the motion. Any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried. However, Councillor Bradley has not put a hand up. Councillor Bradley, how are you voting?
I'll just abstain again
You're
as I was
abstaining?
not there.
Okay, thank you. Will that be recorded? Thank you. Okay, now we go to the City Governance. So I now refer to the City Governance Committee held on the 21st of April 2021. Councillor Wilcox, Chairperson of the City Governance Committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that there were several conflict of interest determinations made in the committee meeting that I will apply to today's meeting. Firstly, for item 4.1, I note that a declarable conflict of interest was declared by Councillor Hall in the committee meeting. The eligible councillors voted that Councillor Hall could remain in the meeting to answer any questions relating to the matter, but that he be removed from the meeting once all relevant questions were exhausted. He could not participate in the decision either by voting on the matter. For item 4.2, I note that Councillor Lane informed the meeting that she reasonably believed or suspected that Councillors Bannon, Raven, Hall and Power had prescribed or declarable conflict of interest in the matter. The eligible councillors determined that Councillors Bannon, Raven and Power did not have conflicts of interest, and Councillor Hall voluntarily declared a declarable conflict of interest. Eligible councillors determined that Councillor Hall would be able to participate in a decision about the matter at the meeting, including by voting on the matter. These decisions will apply to all subsequent decisions in the respect of this matter, and therefore the affected councillors do not need to redeclare today unless there has been a change in their personal interests and or the nature of the matter being discussed. I will now refer to item 4.1 of the City Governance Committee meeting relating to Councillor Conduct Complaint 1. Do any councillors have any further questions for Councillor Hall before he removes himself from the meeting? And if so, please note that we may be required to move into closed session, so please only indicate if you have a question. No? Councillor Hall, you are now welcome to remove yourself from the meeting while the matter is being voted on.
Thank you, councillors. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this matter? No? Okay. Is there a mover for the motion that the recommendations for item 4.1 of the City Governance Committee meeting held on the 21st of April 2021 be adopted? Councillor Bannon has moved the motion. There is a second to the motion. Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. Do anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. So now I'll open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, so that's been carried. However, Councillor Bradley didn't vote. What is your vote?
Against.
Against. And Councillor Wilcox, you didn't vote?
I abstained from that vote.
Any other councillors didn't vote? No. So that's been recorded. Thank you. Okay, so we now need to request that Councillor Hall be invited back into the room. Councillor Wilcox, you may now proceed to item 4.2.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before we move into discussion, do any councillors believe that there has been a change in your personal interests and wish to redeclare your conflict, or do councillors have a new conflict of interest to declare on any item?
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I, Lisa Bradley, declare a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 4.2 of the City Governance Committee held on the 21st of April 2021. The nature of my declarable conflict of interest is as follows. I wish to speak my truth. I am a person who has self-awareness, can own my own faults. However, I unreservedly deny this accusation. Monday.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. A declaration of a conflict of interest isn't an opportunity to debate.
And I'll just talk to CEO about this. Can you just hold proceedings? Councillor Bradley, are you providing a reason?
Yes, my
Okay,
lawyer
then you
has
can
gone through this
You can
with me.
continue.
Thank you. Last Monday, the 19th of April, I stated my intention was to remain in City Governance Committee for clarity questions and remove myself for debate and voting. On Tuesday, the 20th of April, I was told to leave due to coughing in committee. Thus, I was not present on Wednesday, the 21st of April, City Governance Committee. Therefore, I was not afforded the same courtesy and treatment as another councillor prior to a public recommendation for item 4.2, supporting my public statements made in December last year and numerous times thereafter. Natural justice has not been provided due to no weight given to my lawyer's letter, including my social media account twice being hacked, another person having access to my social media passwords.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I feel I'm being influenced by someone who says they have a conflict because she's making an argument. She's not
Okay.
explaining why she has a conflict.
I agree to that point. Councillor Bradley, we haven't made a decision on this. So you cannot use this opportunity to try and persuade the argument.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My lawyer has advised me I can disclose my lawyer's letter.
Just another point of order, please. Like there was,
So, the point of order stands, so you will not be able to continue
Okay, I
that
will
line.
propose to voluntarily exclude myself from the meeting while this matter is debated and vote.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillors, do any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to respond to the comments that Councillor Bradley made, which are unfair and reflect poorly on this council. She was afforded every opportunity to attend that meeting via Teams. Another councillor who was preparing for surgery managed to attend via Teams. So having a cough does not prevent someone from telecasting into the confidential matters of the committee. We've since had two councillors who were unavailable for very important budget meetings and committee meetings, make sure that they were available by Teams. The technology is there to support councillors, and I feel it's unfair to say and untrue to say that Councillor Bradley wasn't afforded the same opportunities. She chose not to take up those same opportunities, and I would encourage you to consider her conduct unsuitable to this meeting because she's making untrue accusations about her colleagues.
Can you just hold that for a second? Sorry, councillors. What we're going to do is we're going to continue on with this discussion. I will be asking Councillor Bradley for an apology after she comes back in. So at the moment, I'm asking any other councillors to whether they want to discuss this matter or not. No? Okay. So is there a mover for the motion that recommendations of item 4.2 of the City Governance Committee held on the 21st of April 2021 be adopted? Councillor Bannon has moved the motion. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Murphy has seconded the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No one wishes to speak to the motion. You wish to speak? Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. When we were elected to council, we were elected to be legislators of local government laws. We weren't elected to be arbitrators of codes of conduct and the like, and we've had this put onto us. Now, I'm pretty sure at some stage down the track, there's going to be a code of conduct against me from a disgruntled member of the community or someone who actually takes offence at the things that I say. Imagine that. My biggest thing is that I would actually like my peers to put as much effort into looking at the facts presented in that code of conduct as we did during that committee meeting. We actually looked at the recommendation of the Office of the Independent Assessor. We looked at the independent investigator's advice and we made a decision based on that. I called out numerous councillors who were mentioned in the report.
Councillor Lane, it was a confidential meeting. So,
it is, absolutely, Mr Mayor.
So you want to go back into camera to discuss
No,
this?
I
Because I
don't.
don't want any of the discussions that took place in the meeting to come out
No,
in this
that's
open
not actually
meeting.
what I'm doing, Mr Mayor. I'm simply stating that I believe that everyone in this room acted in good faith and not everyone came to the same conclusion, and that's okay. But what we did was fair and equitable, and I would hope that when my time comes, and it probably will come, that I'm treated as fairly as Councillor Bradley and Councillor Hall were with theirs.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any other speakers? No? So I now put it to the vote. Please raise your hand. Okay, so Councillor Stemp, how do you vote? Councillor Wilcox?
I abstain from that vote.
Okay, and I'll be abstaining as well.
Councillor Jeremiah too.
Sorry?
And Councillor Jeremiah.
Oh, sorry. I thought your hand went up, so it didn't. So how did you vote, Councillor?
Against.
Abstain. Okay, thank you.
Against.
Against. Okay, well, that motion has been carried. And we'll now ask Councillor Bradley to attend back into the committee.
So, I think you have to say minor unsuitable meeting, confined conduct of failed to confine remarks to the matter. And you're going to be asking for remedial action for such as apologising.
Okay.
All right, now, I don't think you want to go to here, is that serious?
Yep. Councillor Bradley, as you may not be aware, that there was a report of a minor unsuitable meeting conduct. The conduct is a failure to confine the remarks to the matter under consideration. A councillor's conduct will be serious unsuitable meeting conduct if, for example, without the anyway, we'll go into it. You've got an opportunity to apologise. Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do apologise, but as I stated, I went through my lawyer prior to stating what I stated.
So Councillor Bradley has...
Can I just please, if I may?
No,
Okay.
you've apologised, and I think that's the end of the matter. Thank you. Okay. Go back to Councillor Wilcox for the remainder. Sorry. Councillor Wilcox, you may proceed to the remainder of the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have nothing further to add to the recommendations from last week.
Okay, do any other councillors wish to speak? No. Okay. There being no further speakers, Councillor Wilcox, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the recommendations of the City Lifestyle Committee held on the 21st of April 2021, with the exemption of items 4.1 and 4.2, be adopted. Governance. Oh, sorry, City Governance Committee, sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Wilcox has moved the motion. There is a seconder to the motion. Councillor Stemp has moved the motion. Seconded the motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, everyone has voted except Councillor Bradley. Councillor Bradley, how are you voting?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't present.
Abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, the motion has been carried. So we'll go to council reports. We have 3 council reports to consider. I now refer to item 11.1. I invite Mr Robert Strachan, the Director of Organisational Services, to join the discussion. Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? None? There being none, I now refer to the Director of Organisational Services to open public discussion. Mr Strachan, you may proceed.
Good morning, Mayor Power and councillors. I'm here today to talk to 2 reports which we're going to deal with individually, but they are related. Report 11.1 deals with the resignation of Councillor Bradley as Deputy Chairperson of the City Lifestyles Committee. And the second report, 11.2, deals with... Sorry, can I correct that? It was Councillor Russell. So Councillor Russell has tendered her resignation from the City Lifestyle Committee on the 24th of March, and she's nominated for the position of the Deputy Chair of the Planning, Economic Development and Environmental Committee. In accordance with section 3.2 of the Local City Council Local Government and Committee Meeting Code, the local government is required to appoint a chairperson and deputy chairperson for each committee. So the first report deals with Councillor Russell's resignation from the City Lifestyles Committee. The adjusted terms of reference are there for your information. So that would leave Councillor Kerensky remaining as the chairperson and Councillor Hall as the sole deputy chairperson for that committee.
Thank you, Mr Strachan. I now open the floor to the councillors to discuss. Councillor Kerensky.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I regret that Councillor Russell is unable to be with us today, because I just did want to thank her for her contribution to the committee together with Councillor Hall. It's been a great pleasure watching both of them grow and into the area of the City Lifestyle Committee and to take leadership positions. And Councillor Russell came and spoke to me about her intent before she made it known, and she's looking to explore other opportunities within the council, and she wholeheartedly has my support. So our loss, I believe, will be Councillor Raver's gain. So in her absence, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to her for contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Kerensky. Any further discussion from the councillors? No? Okay. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Kerensky has moved the motion. Councillor Kerensky has moved the motion. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Hall has seconded the motion. Therefore, does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. Thank you. I now put the matter to the vote. Floor. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion has been carried. I'll now go to 11.2. Now refer to item 11.2. I invite Mr Robert Strachan, the Director of Organisational Service, to join the discussions. Before we open discussions on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No conflicts. There being none, I now refer to the Director of Organisational Services to open public discussion. Mr Strachan, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Power. This report, 11.2, deals with Councillor Russell's nomination. She nominated on the 24th of March 2021 as the additional Deputy Chairperson for the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee. So under the recommendation, Councillor Raven would remain as the Chairperson for that committee, and there would be 2 Deputy Chairpersons, one being Councillor Stemp and the second being Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr Strachan. Any councillors wish to discuss? Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say that Councillor Russell's a welcome addition to the team. I think I speak on behalf of Councillor Stemp and myself and say we need all the help we can get. It's a very, very busy portfolio with lots of different moving parts, especially when you look at planning and the environment having to interact with each other. It can be challenging at times. The more eyes we've got on that, the better. And she will be a great asset. I thank you to Councillor Kerensky for her support in the changeover.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Any other discussions? No? Okay, is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Raven has moved the motion. The seconder for the motion is now required. Councillor Lane has seconded the motion. Is there anyone wish to speak to the motion? No councillors wish to speak to the motion. I now put the matter to the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion has been carried. I'll now move to 11.3. I now refer to item 11.3. Invite Mr Silvio Trinca, the Acting Chief Executive Officer, to join the discussions. Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have any conflict of interest? No conflicts of interest. There being none, I now wish to refer to Mr Trinca to speak to the report and provide an overview of the process for determining the position of Deputy Mayor.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. Under section 175(2) of the Local Government Act and under section 6.1b of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code, council is required to appoint a Deputy Mayor from amongst its councillors at the post-election meeting or at the first meeting after the office of the councillor whose Deputy Mayor becomes vacant. At the post-election meeting held on the 29th of April 2020, Councillor Raven was appointed a Deputy Mayor for a one-year term ending on the 29th of April 2021. Therefore, it is a requirement now of Council to nominate and endorse a councillor to occupy a Deputy Mayor's office from this date onwards. I had called for nominations for the Deputy Mayor role. The only nomination I've received is from Councillor Russell for Councillor Raven. I have received no other nominations, so unless there are any nominations on the floor today, we can move to a recommendation.
Okay, we'll ask the question. Is there any other nominations from the floor for Deputy Mayor? Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually did approach someone and asked if they would be prepared to nominate. They were prepared for me to nominate them. Unfortunately, they declined.
That's it. There's no nomination.
Sorry, Councillor Bradley. So are you nominating someone?
No.
No. Okay. So we've only got one nomination as such. Okay. So therefore we'll have a recommendation on the board. Can you all see the recommendation? Okay. Thank you, Mr Trinca. Please note the outcome of the nominations has been determined. There's been formed a new proposed motion, which is now displayed on the screen. Is there a discussion on the prior to the moving of the motion? None being so, is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Hall has moved the motion. The seconder for the motion, Councillor Bannon, has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bannon.
I'd just like to say that from my point of view, for being a new councillor, Deputy Mayor's been sensational for me. He's got plenty of phone calls from me at 9 o'clock at night with stupid questions. He's light-hearted. He can put things in plain, simple terms, which is better for some of us to understand. He's made the transition incredibly easy, and I think he's a great Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Any other councillors wish to discuss? That being none, I now put the matter to the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. So we have late reports. We have no late reports to consider. Petitions. Do any councillors have a petition other than Councillor Murphy? No? Okay. So I note that Councillor Murphy has presented a petition that has been actioned. No motion is needed to action the petition. However, as it has been brought forward to council meeting, it must be tabled. Is there a mover for the motion that the petition regarding changes to the plastic yellow bollards on Sunscape Drive, Eagleby, presented by Councillor Murphy at the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of April 2021 be tabled and received? So...
Councillor Murphy's moved the
Yep.
motion.
So Councillor Murphy has moved the motion and Councillor Karansky is sick.
No, it's a procedural motion.
So, yeah, Councillor Murphy has moved the motion. As this is a procedural motion, no seconder is needed. I therefore open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion to table the petition has been carried. Okay, consideration of notified motions. We have no notified motions to consider. I'm sorry. Councillor Murphy wanted to talk for the petition. Councillor Murphy has been carried, but I'll allow you to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say on behalf of the traffic team that we had this sorted out before the petition and it actually even landed on our desk. So thank you to that team that helped me to get an outcome for this particular resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Sorry about that. Okay, we have no notified motions to consider. General business. I now open the general business discussion. Where did I finish last time? Councillor Murphy. GB. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, I participated in an analysis of my social and emotional intelligence profiling. It's not the first time I've undertaken this, however, the results have been consistently the same. I wish to share with you some strengths of being socially and emotionally intelligent. As a councillor, I've always led from my heart, and I wonder how many councillors here do so. Some may feel that's a failing, however, I have found this to be one of my strengths, and that's what my recent results showed. Understanding the effects of one's emotions, being conscious of strengths and limitations, having a sense of self-worth, self-confidence and self-discipline are always strengths. Owning up to limits or failings, whilst always expecting success in the face of adversity. Being visionary, ethical, possessing the energy and passion to see things through are massive strengths. Others are having genuine empathy for others, actively listening, compassion, situational awareness and relationship building through effective communication based on trust and open communication can facilitate shared goals. I can honestly say I've seen this done increasingly and effectively by my councillor colleagues in the recent times. Theodore Roosevelt stated, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." I've found even when delivering not so good news, people actually value how much you care about them and how you've made them feel. This quote is extremely relevant in today's society as communities are a melting pot of different personalities, skills, strengths and emotions. The value of having healthy emotional intelligence is immense, making us less likely to succumb to negative impacts or stresses through self-reflection and analysis, giving gratitude and appreciation for the good things in life, not sweating the small stuff and not expecting anything in return. Personally, I practice this on a daily basis and I encourage my coaching clients to improve their lives by doing so too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm so glad that you raised that issue because I think that all of us as a council cohort share many of those values, the ethics, the honesty, the traits that we put forward, and we all have our challenges and how we look at them is one thing. Just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Mayor, I received a text message from my dad who is 74 years of age. And he wrote, "I've just accepted a 3 to 5 month deployment with St John's Ambulance and PNG, possibly leaving Monday night on a RAF flight. I'll be very safe working on OH&S in the head office on the new COVID hospital in Port Moresby." And my first thought was, dear God, he's 74 years of age. What is he thinking? What is he thinking about accepting that to go to Port Moresby to build a COVID hospital so that people who are sick can actually get some care? And my next thought was, Jesus, how many other old people in the community are doing this exact same thing? How much corporate knowledge do we have out there in the community that we aren't tapping into? How much knowledge is sitting there at home just going, I'm bored and I need something to do? Much like my 74-year-old father who has decided to go to a COVID hotspot and actually help build a hospital and do the OH&S for it. Crazy? Yes. There's no two ways about it. Completely nuts. But at the end of the day, he's bored. He's sitting at home and no one is challenging him intellectually to actually participate in our community. And that's a shame. It's something that we as a council need to look at. We need to look at those assets in the community and work out how we can best utilise them in the future. I think it's one of our most important things that we need to strive to achieve in the next term. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I've got to say something. I went to Port Moresby once. I got out of the plane I took 10 steps and I thought, hold the doors, I want to go back. It was that hot, that humid, I melted on the tarmac. Councillor Kerensky. Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With your indulgence, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for their support for the reappointment as Deputy Mayor. It's been one very busy year and a year in which we've learned a lot together. It's been my great privilege and honour to serve you as your Deputy Mayor, to support you and to work with you. The speed at which you learn and absorb, and that's just not the new councillors, that's all councillors, including the Mayor, because we're all in a new council and it's a new environment that many of us aren't used to, which is one where we work together, we support each other, and we have each other's backs. And the community is noticing. They're giving me that feedback whenever I go out and speak with them, and they're really excited. I had a gentleman just the other day saying, I love watching your council meetings. I never would have thought I would, but it's interesting to see the good work you're doing and how much you all care. So that's fantastic, Mr Mayor. Thank you all for your support, and I look forward to another year of working hard for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Hall. No? Councillor Fraser?
Okay. Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to thank everyone as well for all their well wishes for the arrival of our new child. It's been very heartwarming, people in this very room and people out there in the community. I'd like to say too, I've really enjoyed working here with everyone too over the last year and 1 week. I thank everyone for their support, and I really look forward to working with everyone in the future. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Hieronymi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise today to speak on the new local procurement figures that came across my desk this week. In the last financial year, Council spent about $500 million. 12% of that $500 million was spent with local businesses. Now that's okay, but our city doesn't settle for just okay. Logan was one of the first cities across the entire country to adopt a local procurement policy, and we're seeing some big changes. In January, Council didn't just spend 12% with local suppliers. We didn't spend 15% or 20%. We spent 47% with local suppliers. 47% of council expenditure was spent with local businesses. This sort of change means that $85 million was reinvested into our city to support local businesses and to support local jobs. Money earned in our city is being spent in our city. And Mr Mayor, I'm proud to be a part of this change, because a strong local economy with strong families and a strong city means a strong Australia. As the chairman of the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee, I'd like to thank the procurement team here at Council for their hard work and for their innovation. I'd like to thank my fellow councillors. I'd like to thank the families in our city who work hard every single day, who make our community so special and who make our city great. Mr Mayor, today is bright and our future is even brighter. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Councillor Hieronymi. Good to hear some positive stuff. Councillor Bannon. Councillor Stamp. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. This morning I'd rise to talk about Inland Rail, and residents may ask why I didn't talk to the report in the Infrastructure Committee today, but I didn't want to specifically talk to the report. Today I wanted to bring up my disappointment in the Queensland Coordinator-General. Last week she announced that the Kagari to Acacia Ridge and Brommelton section of Inland Rail would not be declared a coordinated project and allow the K2 ARB section an environmental impact statement. For those who are not familiar with what an EIS is, an EIS outlines the status of the environment in the affected area. I would like to ask the Coordinator-General why this section was not declared a coordinated project. Why have the Logan residents not been given the same opportunity to be provided with an EIS as all other residents have for the sections of Inland Rail? A coordinated project under the State Development and Public Works Organisation Act 1971 states that to be classed as a coordinated project, one or more of the four characteristics may apply. So I find it hard to believe that there was no capacity to undertake an EIS when you apply, or an EIS or make it a coordinated project when you apply 3 of the 4 following criteria to the project. The complex approval requirements involving local, state and federal governments, the significant environmental effects and the strategic infrastructure requirements needed. The Queensland Coordinator General then chooses the weight of each of the above factors to them. If I can apply these three characteristics to the K2 ARB project, and if I was given a criteria matrix, I would be able to weigh them appropriately. I am sure that these alone would amount to declare a coordinated project. So I have to ask, in making your determination, Coordinator General, did you take the following into consideration? Seeking answers from ARTC or the federal and state governments, was there little information provided about this project? The relevant planning scheme or policy frameworks for the local, state and Commonwealth? The pre-feasibility assessment of the project. Did the project not satisfy the identified need or demand of the federal or state government is trying to railroad through the residents of Logan into? And I have to ask myself, why is the state nor the federal government taking ownership of the Inland Rail project and the decisions being made? Why are both levels of government passing the buck and outsourcing to companies that aren't government agencies? Why isn't anyone listening to Logan residents? Finally, I now speak to the residents of Logan, especially those who live within a 1 kilometre buffer zone and who will directly be affected by the increase of the Inland Rail freight line. Just because the K2 ARB section has not been given a coordinated project status like every other section of Inland Rail, I will not stop fighting for the best outcome for you. I will continue to represent you as the Division 11 councillor and ensure that your voices are heard to all levels of government in regards to Inland Rail. And I would like to thank the Division 11 residents for placing their trust in me and for all of your support over the past year. It has been a year since I have been elected as your councillor, and I look forward to another year of working hard for you in Division 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcoxon. It's a very good question. Councillor Murphy. Councillors, I just want to have my little GB. I remember my first attendance at a Anzac Day was at school, like any other little boy in the early 60s, sitting on the basketball court listening to a little amplification box near the flag, and listening to a presenter and going through the whole process. And then as an Air League person attending the march, and actually had a bit of a lemonade with some of the veterans, some of the World War I veterans. So I was young enough to actually get to speak to them. And then later on, I actually did a march with my army unit down the main streets of Melbourne, and I still remember the day that I got so caught up with it that when I got to the shrine, I continued to stride my arms out, which was a no-no, and got told off. But all those Anzac Day at Springwood, just being in attendance, it was such an honour, and I was filled with pride to actually get to speak to my first Anzac Day. I was really thrilled and honoured, privileged to be able to talk to the veterans there, and of course our Army Reserve unit at Meadowbrook, who were doing the Centre Path Party. I was thrilled, and it was a highlight of my career. I just want to leave it at that. So that concludes our agenda for today's meeting. I now declare the meeting of the Ordinary Council closed at 11:13 a.m. Thank you, councillors.